Welcome to Nerd Alert. Today I have a very special interview with a man who is an entrepreneur, a philanthropist, and helped create something called the EyeWriter, which we will tell you about very soon. Please welcome Mick Ebeling. It's great to have you here.
Thanks.
So you created the EyeWriter to help your friend Tempt One, who is an LA-based graffiti artist, and he's actually pretty well known.
Yeah.
But he suffered, in 2003, he was diagnosed with ALS, otherwise known as Lou Gehrig's disease.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
So how did this come about?
It came about, I think like a lot of things in life, totally by chance. I got invited to an art show. Mm-hmm. Spur of the moment, a friend came by and said, hey, do you want to go to the show? I said yes. We showed up and we went to a show right over here in Culver City, and the place was just like pouring with people, and just there's this massive amount of energy, and I had no idea who the show was for, what it was about, but there were all pretty much the badasses of the LA graph scene and street art scene, and it was just one of those impressions where I left and I was like, what is that all about, and who's this for? So that's how I became introduced to him.
Very cool. So he had always been well known for his graffiti art and writing,
mm-hmm.
but after he was diagnosed with Lou Gehrig's, he was paralyzed everywhere except for his eyes, I believe. Mm-hmm. But he still had all these creative ideas.
Exactly.
And he needed a way to express himself.
Exactly.
Is that where you came in finally?
So after that art show, it was kind of like the seed that was planted. And then after that, my production company, because I have a production company, we decided to, instead of giving our clients, a bottle of wine or a toaster or some kind of silly gift like that they throw away or forget about, we were going to make a donation in their name, and we were going to do it to the Tempt One Foundation. So I think it was February or so, we decided I called his father and brother and said, hey, let's meet. So we sat down for breakfast and said, hey, we're going to give you this money, what are you going to use it for? And his brother, before I even finished my sentence, said, I just want to talk to my brother again. And I was kind of surprised, because I think if you're not, you don't have ALS or paralysis or any of those kinds of diseases as part of your life, I think the majority of the people just assume that everybody has a Stephen Hawking machine or a Christopher Reeves machine or some kind of a machine that helps you communicate even though you might be paralyzed. And that's absolutely not the case. It's only, as was explained to me right then and there, you can only have that form of communication if you have insurance or money. And his family didn't have either at that time. So I felt like that was kind of an injustice, that someone wouldn't be able to communicate. Which the crazy thing is, the way that they were communicating was by running their hand along a piece of paper, their finger along a piece of paper, and then as they got to a letter, Tempt would blink his eyes, and then his brother, father, or caretaker, whoever would write the letter down. And they would go back and repeat it again. So if you can imagine what it would take to just say good morning, it's like a 5-minute ordeal. So that to me is kind of inexcusable, especially in 2009, 2008, 2009. And so I said, all right, we have to change that. So I didn't know how, but at the breakfast I said, we're going to do two things. We're going to figure out a way for you to be able to talk to your brother again, and we're going to figure out a way for him to do his art again. So we high-fived and hugged and walked out the door, and I had no clue how I was going to pull it off, but it was one of those things that just had to be done. And
you gave a TEDx speech about this.
I did.
Because you had no experience in ocular technologies before this.
Correct.
So can you give me a little bit of a run-through of what you did at that point?
Well, after that moment that I met with them, I left, and just the skills that I have as a producer is just figuring out how to make stuff, right? It happens to be, no matter what it is, you make phone calls and you network and you figure out how to connect people and things and creative ideas, and voila, at the end you have a film or an animation or a piece. So I use those same kind of skills and my company to try to push the insurance companies and the hospitals to deliver what we called a Stephen Hawking machine, which was just an expensive machine to allow them to communicate. So after about 3 months, we finally knocked down all the doors and barriers and got him a machine called a MyToby, which was awesome, because if you can imagine, I think at the time they hadn't spoken to him for about 5 or 6 years, it might even be more. And so now he started to type with his eyes, and then the machine would say, and we have clips I can actually show you, that he's actually typing with his eyes and talking, so which is pretty awesome now to have have a conversation with your dad or your brother or your friends and not have to have it so laborious and painful to write all these things down. So that was the first thing we did. And then the next thing was to get him to draw. And that one took that took longer to figure out.
Yes, because that had never been done before, right?
There were other devices out there that we did not know until after we finished the EyeWriter. We found it's one of those things where we basically, in many ways we reinvented the wheel, but we also think that had we not, we probably wouldn't have been as successful as we were because we had no concept of what was possible and what wasn't possible. So we just put our heads down and said, we got to do this for Tempt.
Well, what I love about the EyeWriter is that you gathered all these people, hackers, developers, designers, engineers, to come together and to make this. And it's all online, it's all open source, and it's not expensive at all. You could build it yourself.
Right. That's the theory around this was, well, there wasn't really that much of a theory. That's the great thing about this, is that we were just trying to help one person, that was Tempt. And that was a massive lesson. Now, what are we, 5-6 years after this, that constantly is asked to me, why was this thing so successful and why did it get so big and blah, blah, blah. And I think truly the reason that it was successful is that we weren't trying to do too much. We were just trying to help Tempt. And the residual effects of that was that it helped thousands and thousands of people all over the world. So making that, we knew that if we were going to do it and it would have the ability to help other people, it wouldn't be something that would have a closed-end system. We had to make it open source and we had to make it DIY so that people could improve upon it and make it themselves.
What's the response you've gotten from this? I mean, you must have gotten emails from all over the world for people who have built their own or who had wanted to build their own or maybe even expand upon it.
I could not have predicted the response like that. I mean, if you tried to craft it and deliberately plan this to be have the trajectory that this had, we couldn't have ever imagined it in our wildest dreams. We had people all over the world write us and thank us. We had people tell us to pour their hearts out to us about their family members or friends who had paralysis or family members who had passed that wish they would have had this because they would have been able to communicate with them. It's amazing what happened. And then all the press and awards and things. We
won some pretty good awards. Times top 50 inventions. That's incredible.
And we never did any outreach. It was all something that just came to us. So it was pretty.
So
pretty cool.
The version you have here is the first version, correct?
Correct. This is a 1.0. So. I live in Venice Beach, so this is a pair of sunglasses from the Venice Beach boardwalk. This is a coat hanger. This is 2 different colors of electrical tape, just because we wanted to be stylish, but you can use whatever color you want. This is a Sony PS3 camera that we hacked open.
So that's the PlayStation Eye, right? That's an old camera.
It's a very old camera, but that was, 6 years ago now. And the new version now you can get on eBay for $4, and you don't need these, which are the IR lights, to illuminate the pupil because the new cameras are sensitive enough to use just regular natural light. So that's it.
So what I love about this, you were telling me before that EyeWriter.org, what you see there on the site for the EyeWriter is completely different from the modern version because it's just grown and changed with so many different people working on it.
Right.
Over the years.
This is like a story that never ends. So people tell it, and then someone picks it up and keeps telling it a new way or a different way, and they make modifications. So the version that we're using now is actually called the Eye Can.
Yeah.
And it's actually funny, all the plays on the eye. I sent a team to Mumbai and we created the Mumbai Writer. And then we had a team in Korea that we didn't even know existed that all of a sudden one day sent us an email saying that they created the Eye Can for ALS patients in Korea. And I actually just met those guys a couple weeks ago. And
yes, you gave the mayor your new version.
I did.
Of Seoul.
Yeah, it was awesome. It was a great experience.
That's incredible. So this is the older version, and of course it's changed over the years, but so has Tempt. His conditions degenerated to a point where his eyes don't blink as quickly as they used to.
Correct.
And that makes it so it's harder to use this device because it relies on quick blinking. And that's where your new project comes in.
Exactly. So the way that, and now I would call myself a remedial understander of ocular recognition technology. I can describe it and tell you how it works, which is the pupil acts as essentially like the tip of a pencil. And the way that you would place your pencil on a piece of paper or on something to write with is by blinking. So when you blink, you blink once and it puts it down, and then with your eyes you draw, and then when you're ready to pick it up, you blink again and it lifts it. Well, the act of blinking, when you do it spontaneously and naturally, you don't even think about it, right? When you actually do it intentionally and try to blink, you actually, if you, even yourself or myself, if you do it like 10 times in a row, you experience like a little bit of fatigue. It's kind of hard. So with TEMPT, the problem with ALS is it's a disease of kind of muscular deterioration. So now he's lost his ability to fast blink. And if you can't fast blink, then you can't engage and disengage the mouse.
I see.
So for us, that was, we had this amazing story. We helped our friend, and he's drawing again, and his art is showing all around the world. And he got up, literally all over the world. We made a huge sculpture of his work, and then it got his expression and his art that he loved so much was taken away from him. So we realized, once you're in that deep, you can't just go, that sucks, too bad, but we'll talk to you later. And we had to stay involved. So what we did was we started to look for different ways to engage and disengage the mouse. And that led to the newest form of kind of drawing tool that we're trying to develop for him called the EyeWriter. And what that's going to be is it's essentially going to take the ocular movement or mouse movement with your eyes, but instead of engaging and disengaging with blinking, it's going to engage and disengage with the brainwaves that you give off. So basically using consumer-friendly EEG devices. So
like the Emotive.
The Emotive is the device that we used for our prototype, exactly.
Which is, I think it's used commonly for video games.
Video games, and they're they have all kinds of different uses, but that's probably the most common use.
The most common, though I've seen other people use it for all sorts of different uses, like this, and which I love because we're finding more innovative uses for already existing technology.
Exactly.
What would he have to think, or what would a user have to think to engage or disengage the cursor?
What we're trying to do is we're trying to make it, especially in these early stages, is try to make it almost like a binary switch, like on off. We're not trying to make it where he's not going to be drawing with his brain, he's going to be selecting with his brain. So in our first stages, we almost want to have it as like a yes, no, or stop, go, kind of, click, unclick, because that's essentially what we're trying to replicate with him clicking the mouse or not clicking the mouse.
But the strokes are still like his eye movement. His
strokes will still be his eyes. Now, the great thing is we're starting to see, again, it's this crazy race against ALS, is that as EEG technology progresses, I just started reading things about the fact that people are now able to draw with their brain as well. So my hopes are that soon he won't even have to use his eyes, and that he truly can lay there and do his art. And he's such a gifted artist, that would just be an amazing thing to see.
I was curious about the art. I was watching a video online about he was writing TEMPT, and it was projected onto a building by the freeway. Yeah. And I loved that. Is it all just projection, or?
Well, the way that it started was I met these guys named James Powderly and Evan Roth, and they were part of a group called Graffiti Research Lab. And that's actually how this whole thing came to pass, was that I met them at a design conference, because that's my day job of what I do. And we hit it off, and they had created this thing called laser tag, which allowed them to draw on the sides of buildings or surfaces far, far away with a laser pointer and do non-permanent graffiti with light. So when I came back, I was having dinner with my wife and was telling her about what these guys did and how cool they were and how blah, blah, blah. And she said, well, wait a second. If we already, this is after we had the Mitobi. She said, if we have the Mitobi and we know that TEMPT can type with his eyes and use control the mouse with his eyes, why don't we figure out a way for him to control one of those laser pointers with his eyes, and now he can get up again and do graffiti. And then she kind of casually said, hey, will you pass the salad dressing? And I was like, wait a second, hang on.
What?
I think, yeah, that's it. So that started the whole process of chasing these guys down, and it took us about a year to finally coordinate schedules, but getting them all to come out to our house to create the first version.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so the crazy thing about that is that what we've learned throughout this whole process is that, the beautiful thing about technology is that it continues to progress. So with the BrainWriter, what we want to see happen is as we kind of race, and it's like a race of technology and ALS, that Tempt will be able to start getting up as amazing as he did before. And the crazy thing is that he's such a gifted artist. What he can do, it's incredibly hard to write with your eyes. And what he can do with his eyes is better than I could do, if I took 3 years of art classes.
Oh, I'm sure.
Yeah.
What is he doing? Is he doing that now?
Well, right now he can't draw, so he just has the Mytobi. So he's able to, email and Facebook and do things like that, but he's not able to draw.
So we're working on the BrainWriter.
We're working on the BrainWriter right now, which is one of the big initiatives that we just launched, is trying to kind of crowdsource teams to help work on this.
Yeah, I really liked that. It's like the Kickstarter, but of really talented people.
Right.
So you started Not Impossible Labs.
Correct.
And this is a way to get people who are multi-talented to come together and work on special projects. Can you talk about that more?
Sure. One of the questions that was asked to me, dozens and dozens of times after people found out about, like, if I talk about this or get interviewed about this, is they said, well, great, well, what's next? And my response was like this. I don't know. I just wanted to help my friend Tempt. And you get that question asked to you enough, and you're like, damn, I have to do something. Like, what is next? So we really examined why this was successful, and we boiled it down to a couple things. And one of the things was the fact that we wanted to help Tempt because he was our friend, and there was a personal relationship that we had with him. So we can't just invent something like, oh, let's create a flying broom, because there's no personal connection. We probably could.
I'd like a flying broom, I'm just saying, and we're friends now.
Well, now that I know you, let's see. But there had to be some kind of reason to do it. So what we decided to do was that instead of having just randomly let's create this or let's create that, is to give people a reason to say, hey, my friend needs this, or I really wish this could happen for my dad or my uncle or my brother or my sister or my aunt. So there had to be a personal connection to that. So the way that Not Impossible Labs works is that people come in and they say, hey, I need this, or my friend needs this, or someone needs this. And they create, much like a Kickstarter situation, they create a profile of, this is who I am, and this is what I want to make it, and this is why I need it, and can someone help me, basically. And instead of someone giving just dollars and then checking in on, seeing how it's doing, it's people giving their skills and their abilities to try to help make it. So we want people to go through and say, not interested, ooh, that's interesting, because my dad surfed, or I'm from the Philippines, or I went to school there, or whatever that reason might be. That there's it's almost like a dating site mentality of why you're attracted to that. So.
Yeah.
No, but attracted to that cause, as opposed to that person, is that you're attracted to that cause. There's an emotional connection of why you feel that you need to be on that team.
So maybe for the case of the BrainWriter, it would be someone who is interested in graffiti art, but is also a hacker.
Could be a hacker. They could be just really interested in EEG technology and think that it's all science fiction and they want to get all up in there, or whatever it might be. But we're starting to put that out there for people to come on and help us crack it open. And Emotive has been incredibly helpful too. They want to throw their weight in as well. That's
great.
Yeah.
And then the other project you have there right now is a cane for a blind magician.
A blind magician. Yes. And I can't make that up. And every time I say it, I smile because it sounds like a fabrication. But no, his name's Chad. And Chad is a friend of ours that actually we came to know through the EyeWriter. His wife and he were watching or listening to the documentary that we made. And his wife called me and said, my husband wants to talk to you. And I was like, oh, okay, cool, yeah, let's definitely talk. She's like, no, he wants to talk to you now. And it's funny because all these people I've been meeting are just so determined. They're like, we got to do this. So we got on the phone, and he's incredibly passionate, incredibly charismatic. And he said, I have some ideas that we can create something, and let's do it. So we're now in the process of trying to take this incredibly elegant and beautiful and almost perfect device called a tap cane that has been around for centuries, and try to figure out how to modify it so that it can do more without tainting the integrity and the beauty of it already, which is it's lightweight, it doesn't require electricity, it totally does the job, and there's a perfection in the people, how the people use it. So now we're figuring out how to balance the improvement of it without ruining kind of the beauty of it.
Wow. So who would you want on that project? Or what kinds of talents are you looking for to contribute?
Well, I mean, let's talk about talent for a second, because the talent on these projects comes from, obviously you're going to have software engineers, you're going to have hardware engineers, hackers, and just makers in general. So you've got more of like the technical side, but the other side that we've really realized that we need for these projects are people who are just really passionate about it and want to help project manage it. And if you look at the EyeWriter came from a producer. I can turn on a computer and I can get my way around it, but when it comes to actually digging into the code, that's beyond me. So I just knew how to produce projects, and I'm really passionate about something when I sink my teeth into it. So we want people like that as well to come on board and say, I'm really organized, or I'm really persistent, or I'm not going to let this project fail, and they get involved just as well.
That's great. I mean, not all of us have the acumen to be able to develop software, but I liked your attitude of coming into this like, I don't know how I'm going to make it happen, but somehow I'm going to make it happen.
Right.
And that's what you're looking for, and that's the kind of passion you need. You're also a filmmaker, and you were talking a little bit before that you had made a documentary about Tempt and his story.
Right. We made a documentary called Getting Up, the Tempt 1 story.
He hadn't been able to draw for such a long time, and here he had a tool that he could draw. Yeah, there was a lot of bumps in those 7 years, but he's there. Like, he picked it up and he's running with it. Like, he's going. Like, it's gonna be okay.
That was the first time I've drawn anything since 2003. Feels like taking a breath after being held underwater for 5 minutes. I am going to take a couple of more stabs at it, but for catching some's easy. If I wasn't so tired, I'd have spent all day goofing around and tagging.
Wah, cue music. It's a documentary that we made that, funny enough, because I'm a filmmaker and a producer, the adage of shoemaker's children goes without shoes. Friends of ours, right before we had flown the GRL team to our house, a bunch of friends of ours were out to dinner, and they said, so, when do you guys start filming? And there was a long pause, and I looked at them and they said, wait, you're filming this, right? You're actually going to film this? And I said, yeah, no, we're definitely going to film this. And they were like, I can't believe you haven't thought of that. So we pulled together a team to film it, and it was a much longer endeavor than we had anticipated. But it ended up premiering in Park City in 2012.
Yes,
Thank
it
you.
says
Thank you.
won Slam Dance 2012.
We did. We won the audience award, and we went on to a bunch of different film festivals, and it was really, really well received. So, and the filmmaker is my wife, which I think is incredibly apropos, since if you boil it down, this largely came from her brain.
Using her skills.
Yep, exactly.
Exactly. That's what you're about. And you're raising money for Tempt and his hospital care, correct?
Exactly. We have a big event tomorrow night, much like that first event that inspired me at the very beginning. Shepard Fairey, Chaz, Slick, Deffer, Prime, Angst, all these amazing LA street artists and graffiti artists are coming out to donate their art. We're going to have an art auction, and then we're going to have a screening of the film for many of the people who have not seen it because it's been on the film festival circuit, and then afterwards do a raffle. But this is all to raise money for Tempt's care. because ALS is just this horrific disease, and he just requires 24-hour care, so we want to make sure that he has the best care possible.
Is there somewhere people can go online to find out more about Getting Up or the BrainWriter or the newest version of the EyeWriter and really become a part of it?
Absolutely, absolutely. The best place right now is to go to Not Impossible Labs, and you can get links there to all the different sites.
I'll put them in the descriptions.
Yep, perfect. So we'll put that there, and then as far as being involved with the EyeWriter and things like that, we are building the repository with the latest version so that it's really easy for people to go and know how to build it. I'm actually next Friday doing a big workshop at my kids' school where we're going to build like 10 of these things just with a bunch of 9-year-olds. So I figure if a bunch of 9-year-olds can build this thing, then we can.
Yeah, I can probably do it if some 9-year-olds can do it. I think this is great, this open source technology that's so easy for people to become a part of and make and just have and make even better. I hope I have a friend as good as you one day.
Thank you.
Who's doing this for me.
That's very sweet of you. I think the amazing thing about this, and I think the amazing thing about what the potential of Not Impossible Labs has to do, or what it can do, is there's so much talk about trying to make healthcare more accessible and people having access to healthcare. And I feel incredibly blessed that this path has been kind of unfolding in front of me. But I think what's happened is that we've now kind of got a glimpse of being able to create medical devices and tools for people that are a fraction of the cost that they can either make themselves or that we're going to be able to create that can then be resold. So in a way, without sounding too grandiose, we see this as possibly the beginning of revamping how healthcare is delivered to people around the world.
That's incredible. So is that the ultimate maybe dream that you would like to see for Not Impossible Labs?
Absolutely. I would love to see this kind of revolutionize how healthcare is delivered so that we're not held hostage by insurance companies, or, think about all the markups for a simple device. Everybody takes a piece all the way along the way. If we can actually create these devices that you can make them yourself, or a lot of people don't want to make them themselves. If a company can come on and take what we've done and make that cheaper, but actually better and more affordable, so that the conventional healthcare system just becomes more accessible, and not trying to change it and get rid of it, but actually make it where, imagine if 1,000 devices that we all need when we go to a hospital were now cut in half in terms of pricing. That's going to have a massive effect on healthcare.
I think that could be just like the greatest change. There's so many people who need a medical device, not necessarily like this, but who wouldn't be able to afford it, but have this passion and desire. And I think if you could have just applied that to creating one, that would just be incredible.
And all of it comes out of need too. It's not just, how can we make a buck? It's, well, here's a perfect example. The team that helped, it's this amazing story. The team, James, who was on the original GRL team who helped us make the EyeWriter, who lives in Korea now, and the ICANN team, who is the kind of the latest and best version of the EyeWriter now, are going to be working on a new device for us that came to us through Not Impossible Labs, where a father reached out to us and said, my son just broke his neck. So it's a high spinal cord injury, which means he's paralyzed, he's on a ventilator, and he's 18 years old and he wants to finish college. We can't afford a blow mouse, which is basically a way to steer a mouse with your mouth, with your tongue and with blowing, because they're too expensive. Can you help us create that? And so I reached out to this is an incredibly passionate story, and I'm a father, so it meant something to me. Like, I couldn't imagine if that happened to me. So I reached out to my team and said, hey, can we do this? And the response was amazing. The response was, yeah, but not this week. We can have it done next week.
Wow.
Exactly. And I was like, are you serious? And he said, so we actually started work on it. We haven't started formally. We're just actually doing our first meetup tomorrow with Korea and LA, and we're going to start the process. And my goal is to have this thing done in less than 14 days.
Mick!
And deliver it to this guy so that he's like, there you go, your son can have this thing now. And then we're going to publish it and put it out there. And so that device, the cheapest device that we found online, like I got goosebumps telling you about it. The cheapest device we found online right now, and we haven't done extensive research, but so our initial research, $800 for one of these tools. We think we're going to be able to do this thing for under $100.
Whoa.
So that's one of those things where imagine applying that to the medical system as we know it, and just that you're
Oh my
talking about like
gosh.
changing, like you're talking about a cataclysmic change across the industry. So it could be pretty awesome.
It could change everything.
Yeah, it could.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
I'm really blown away.
Isn't that cool? Thanks.
Oh gosh. Okay, so to learn more, please visit Not Impossible Labs and whatever other links Mick wants to give me to put in the description. I think this is great. I hope you change the world and you meet your goal. Thanks so much for coming in.
Thanks a lot. Cheers.
Cheers.